Basement Politics with Freddy Vazquez. Tonight, special guest, Carlos Burgos, candidate for Yonkers City Council, District 4. Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Thursday. I am Freddy Vazquez, host of Basement Politics. And tonight, I have a very special guest, Carlos Burgos. Who is Carlos Burgos? Right? That's the question. When I heard the name the first time, I said, who's Carlos Burgos? Well, tonight, guess what? We're going to find out just who Carlos Burgos is. And he has an amazing and interesting story. How he got on the ballot. Wasn't easy, but he got on. And he's here with me today, Carlos Burgos. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome him. Say hello, Carlos.
Good to see you. Good to be seen. Thank you for having me. I'm loving the intro.
I try to make it, as professional as possible. Look, I even put on a tie this evening because I knew you would have a tie on. So I wanted to be as professional as you. But anyway, welcome to the show, Carlos. Thank you. Thank you for accepting my invite, and I'm happy to have you. Been looking forward to this. So has a lot of people, actually. I've been getting a lot of calls. When is Carlos going to be on? So how you doing, Carlos? How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Again, I'm glad to be here. I appreciate you. It's good to see you virtually. And I'm grateful again. I'm just grateful for the invite. So yeah, I'm happy to share what makes sense. I'm happy to let's dig in.
All right, let's get to it. So, Carlos, first, I want to introduce you, right? Because I didn't know who you were at first, right? And there's probably some people that still don't know who you are. So we want to make sure that everyone in Yonkers knows who Carlos Burgos is. So give me a little quick bio.
Quick bio. I'll try to make it quick. I am a single dad. My son is a Yonkers Public Schools student. I am myself a Yonkers Public Schools alum. And so I went to two schools in my district. So I went to School 21, Mark Twain, when it was Mark Twain, and then Yonkers High School. So Yonkers Montessori Academy is not Mark Twain anymore. Went on to do a whole bunch of other educational things. So I got a master's in higher ed from Penn. Now I'm doing a PhD, in gender studies over at Rutgers. In between that, I helped start a community college called Gutman Community College. Some of you may know that institution right in Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah, I heard about that, and I read that somewhere, and I think you mentioned it, and I want to get into that just in a little bit here. But going back to just what you said a little bit in terms of your education, I'm really impressed, buddy. I'm really, really impressed, man. You're working on your PhD. Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, thanks, man. Yeah, so it's a women's gender and sexuality studies department over at Rutgers. We like to think that we're the highest regarded program. There's debate, I'm sure, but it's a top program in the field. They don't rank these programs, but it's up there. So I just finished coursework a few weeks ago. So basically what that means is there's no more classes, so I don't have to do classes anymore. Now moving on to there's exams and then the dissertation phase. So it's a long journey, but it really means that I committed a big chunk of a decade to studying, thinking with scholars in the field. So I'm excited, man.
You're a very busy guy. You're going for your PhD, and you're also going for the seat, District 4, Yonkers City Council, and you're going up against a tough opponent, right? You're going up against John Rubo, the incumbent. He's well known, somewhat well established, or not somewhat, I'd say very well established. And here you are, a new guy. What is it that Carlos is going to bring that's going to be different to that seat, that position?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm committing to being as responsive as I've been throughout the campaign since its inception. Right. The reason why I jumped into this was because I learned that I was not the only one experiencing this sort of non-responsive council person. And so I can commit to that. I've done that well. People reach out to me all the time. I'm getting cold calls a little more than I was a few weeks ago. And I'm responding as well as I think anyone should. And, that's the commitment. That's what'll make me different.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Carlos. Cold calls. What do you mean by that? What do you mean you're getting more cold calls? I mean, when I think of cold calling, right? I used to work down in, in Wall Street, right? And we did a lot of cold calling, right? We would just call someone randomly and hope that we'd get them on the line and we can, get their business. What do you mean by that in terms of politics?
It's a similar thing, I put we have an office number. So I put the office number on the website, totally available, and people call and they say, awesome. Oh, I didn't expect you to call. I didn't expect you to pick up, or I didn't expect you to call back, or,
Well, I'm Carlos Burgos and I'm here to actually pick up the phone. Right? Is that what you're telling me?
That's the commitment. That's the commitment.
Right. So people basically just cold call you, right? So you'll have a number there and they'll just randomly call you and some are surprised that you're picking up, right? And what are these people saying?
Well, I just had a great conversation over the weekend about animal rights and thinking about expanding our shelter because we don't have a spay neuter clinic in our shelter here. It's a volunteer shelter. I knew that, but I'm sort of learning about this more and I just happened to get a call. So stuff like that. I got invited a few hours ago to Park Hill Association forum for candidates. I got invited to, it's not, a lot of it is like candidate forum stuff that I'm getting, but so every now and then I get some cool stuff like animal rights. So.
Right. No, that's awesome. I know that's great. And that people are actually reaching out to you already. Right. And they're seeing that you're responding. Right. You haven't been elected yet, but you're responding already. Right. So that's great. And meeting you, we've only known each other for a short amount of time and you're very busy. It's hard to really speak with you, but a lot of the candidates are very busy. I was talking to London Reyes last week about that. And, even just now, I was a little concerned. I get on edge. I had a little anxiety, like, where's he at? I'm calling you. And, I'm like, it's almost 8:00 and I got to get started. But you're busy. You're out there. You're putting in the work. You're knocking on the doors and you're letting people know who you are. You really want this position. I can see that. And you're working hard for it, Carlos. And I appreciate you being out there. Right. And I appreciate you being someone that's taken on the, the challenge of wanting to bring change to the community. It's not easy. It's not easy at all. And just tell me a little bit about the work that you do now currently. What is your profession? What do you do for work?
Yeah, no, luckily I'm privileged to get paid to study, the PhD
nice.
Life. Yeah, it's a fully funded package. They pay you for it. But I do some consulting on the side in higher education institutions. So, like I said, I started that school, Government Community College. I was not the only one. I worked on a big team, and that really catapulted my career in higher education. So I've made a bunch of connections, and I just help out. So I'm working at Fordham in their chief diversity office, helping them out, sort of helping them expand those initiatives. And at Gutman, I'm doing some part-time stuff, fundraising. So
wow, nice. My wife actually graduated with her master's from Fordham. So she's a Fordham alum. Yeah. And she actually wanted to go to Columbia, but she wasn't born rich, so she had to work and she couldn't go to school at Columbia. But she did graduate Fordham. She loves it very much. And I'm really impressed. You're an education guy. That's dope because I want to see more people who have experience and knowledge and a skill set specifically in the education realm, right? We need to definitely spruce up the schools, right? That's one of the big I would say issues and concerns for the city residents here in Yonkers. And I'm sure you've knocked on many doors and people have said that to you. So bringing that experience that you have in what you're doing now, how much of an asset, what is the big plus that you're going to bring towards, improving the educational system here in Yonkers? Because that's a big issue, education.
I know. I mean, my son goes to school 25 and we've been through the hurdles. I think there's a few ways that I see myself being an asset. One, being an educator, being groomed in the field. And think like an educator. It's important to have people like that to make up the sort of constellation of the council. And so I'm happy to sort of just bring that sort of sensibility in. And what that means is, thinking about the way funds are being dispersed, thinking about how priorities are being articulated, to groups is really important. And then who you advocate for matters. Who I'll be advocating for, the children and the families, because I have a keen understanding of what it's like to be a parent and also a student in the public school system. So that is that. I mean, I can go on and on, but I'm
sure,
say
I can go on with you. That's something
Okay,
that's actually dear to my heart, especially my wife as well. She's, she's an educator. She's a school social worker, college professor, clinical therapist. She was my first therapist. I was her first client, as we like to joke. But she's big on education. And, so she will definitely appreciate what you have to say. And, I definitely am excited for candidates with that education experience. So that's great. And I think you're doing an excellent job there. And I look forward to, if you are the one elected, to seeing what you would do in terms of the education here in Yonkers to improve it for the students. And community service. I know you're a community guy. You're a community organizer. You hit the ground, and hard, and you're in the trenches. Tell me a little bit about some of your community service.
Yeah, I saw a good evening down there, so I wanted to say good evening back. I think
yes, that was Nancy Cater. She said good evening.
Yes.
So we'd like to say good evening back to Nancy. Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Yeah, so being in the trenches, I mean, a lot of the work that I've done, sort of like real community organizing, grassroots training, came through New York Public Interest Research Group over at Borough of Manhattan Community College. I was a community college student before everything else. So I helped do really basic, like we did some train surveys on the trains. We did a lot of get out the vote stuff, get people registered to vote, those sorts of things. So that's really where I learned how to leaflet and sort of do the kind of base building that is becoming really helpful in the past few weeks. And then it goes on and on. I mean, a lot of organizing also happens within higher education institutions, right? They're big bureaucratic, messes, just like government. And so a lot of the organizing also has happened, to advocate for students and to sort of push agendas along in the institution,
So a lot of it is with e-education, and I love that. I love that you're heavy in the education. You're very focused when it comes to education. But I want to ask you, Carlos, why did you decide to throw your hat in the ring? What was it that just said I have to enter this race? And it was a challenge. It wasn't easy getting on this ballot, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But what is it that prompted you? What said, hey, Carlos, with everything that you have going on, right? I'm going to go and accept this challenge and take that on.
Yeah. There's a few things. The main thing that I think about is I spent, like I said, I just finished coursework, right? So I spent coursework is around 2 to 3 years. For my program, it was 2 years. So that means I was in just like a ton of classes, reading a ton of books, blah, 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 right? And talking about the books all the time. And one thing that what kept coming up in the classes in more than ever was what needed to happen in local politics, what needed to happen in national politics, what we think policymakers should be doing, et cetera, right? And the other thing, so I said, okay, well, maybe one of us should actually be in office. That's one. And then the other thing is, talking with people throughout the pandemic, I mean, I was really forced to be super local in a way that I had not been. And a lot of the issues were exacerbated in our communities just due to the pandemic. And I didn't see really a responsive, I didn't see that my council person was responding to that. We were asking very clear questions about what was going on with education spending. We needed laptops to be brought back to to be distributed equitably in our community. We needed trash cans to be brought back, and thankfully they're being brought back. And there's all sorts of drama about that.
Yeah, I mean, you believe it or not, trash cans are hard to locate, right? I hate to litter. I hate to have garbage in my car, but oftentimes I find myself with a lot of garbage in the car, and people look at me and say, "Why do you have this car looking like this?" Right? You treat it like it's a crappy car, and to me, it's a car these days now. But it's because there's not garbage cans anywhere. I have to really search for a garbage can, and I don't want to just throw it out in the street, and litter. So, definitely that is an issue. I mean, and I see them. They started to bring the ones with the bags that just hang out, which. Mm-hmm. I don't know about that. I mean, the animals don't get into them. I don't know. But that's just one of the quality of life issues, right? One of the many that I'm sure that you would be focused on if elected to city council to represent District 4, right? So, I mean, I want to get into the to the some of the interesting part of getting on this ballot, right? It was a little challenging for you at first. You went, you knocked on doors. First of all, let's explain to the folks, right, who may not know this. How many signatures do you need before you can get on a ballot and run for any political office? You have to acquire certain number of signatures, right? And they have to be valid signatures. And then if they are, you get placed on the ballot. Okay. So how many signatures did you have to get in order to get put on the ballot?
I love what you're doing. I think this is so important, and it's something that I want to actually. I think this is, anyways, really important that we have this conversation.
Well, we'll talk a lot more about it. And definitely I love building with my community, so definitely. But so explain that a little bit.
So for every district, it depends on the population. And we had the state had different mandates given the pandemic. So short answer, 145 signatures is what we needed for this district, for this election.
It doesn't seem like a lot now, right? But I hear that you want to get double the amount that's required, right? Because there's going to be possibly 3 times the amount, possibly a challenge. There may be some issue with someone's writing. Who knows, right? You don't want to just cut it close, right? So how many signatures did you actually collect?
Yeah, so we submitted 300 signatures, which was over double. Yeah.
Yes, so you submitted 300 signatures, and you went to the Board of Elections up in White Plains, I believe?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So you handed in your signatures and you said, hey, here I go. I'm ready to get put on the ballot. And then what happened after that?
And then we were put on the ballot. So the Board of Elections takes in everything that you submit as valid. They don't, they sort of assume
they just believe you.
Intent. Yeah. They just assume best intent, as long as there's no crazy errors with like formatting, And so we were on the ballot effective, we got a notice saying, we're on. Great.
Right. So as long as no one is hating on you, right, or has an issue with you, or truly questions whether or not the signatures are legitimate or not, the Board of Elections is just going to say, hey, okay, no one questioned them. You're on the ballot, correct?
That's right. Yeah, that's my understanding. I mean, I don't represent the board, but that's the way I understand it to be. Yeah.
And that's the way I'm going to understand it until I'm told otherwise. And so you did that. You were on the ballot, and then wait a minute, someone had an issue with Carlos being on the ballot. And they questioned you, but not just you, Carlos. All right. I mean, as much as you're a handsome guy, but I don't think it was just you. And the other gentleman who was also in the race for District 4, who's no longer in the race, was also his signatures were also challenged. Correct?
That's right. Yeah, we were both facing the same challenges. Yeah.
Okay. And what's interesting also, and when I did my research, is that the person that petitioned this, right, and questioned the signatures was the same person for both. And I just was trying to understand why this gentleman would do that. But anyway, how long after you submitted your signatures did the challenge come up?
Yeah, I don't want to date myself and have this all incorrect. I memorized it all when we were in court. We were in court for many, many days, and I've let some of it slip. But within a few weeks,
within
a few weeks, I was served papers, which turns out it's not the way it's supposed to happen. The process is different. You're supposed to get notified from in the mail, and that did not happen. I got served papers.
Well, explain to me the process, because I'm while I do the basement politics with Freddy Vazquez, right? I like to make it very clear. I do not claim to know everything. Okay. I do not. And I'm learning as well, along with everyone else. So please explain the process to me and the proper way I guess the process should be handled.
Sure. Yeah. Look, and I've learned a lot myself. And so, I could have some things wrong. I'll say that. But what I understand it to be is, let's say I challenge your signatures. I'm supposed to submit the challenge specific. I'm supposed to go through your petition. I submit what they call a general challenge, right? Just to buy me some time. It's all time bound. And then I'm supposed to sort of go through your petitions and mark up with a code and a key and a legend with sort of what I think you did wrong, and where I think where each signature that I think is wrong for whatever reasons. Like, there's all sorts of accusations, right?
Right.
And then I submit that to the board, and I'm supposed to mail that to you, certified mail, with a return receipt. And
And when you say mail to you, who do you mean to who?
Like if I challenge you, I'm saying like
Right.
if I challenge your signature, so it goes to the candidate, right? So it goes to the candidate.
I got you.
And then it goes to the Board of Elections.
So you never received one. Is that what you're telling me?
No, that's right. Yeah. So we didn't get them in the way that we were supposed to.
And now when did you bring this up or mention this to the board? Would that be a reason for the petition or the challenge to be thrown out and say, well, you didn't do it the proper way, so it's invalid?
It really comes down to the way the judge sort of thinks about all these different stipulations, like because there's all these different, the law can be interpreted in all these different ways. So we make the case and they do what they want.
Well, long story short, right? You were challenged. All right. And then so the first step, I guess, was to go to the Board of Elections. They reviewed it, right? The Board of Election reviewed the signatures, and then they made a determination, right?
Right.
They determined that, in fact, you did not have 300 legitimate signatures, but you did have enough to still be on the ballot.
That's
correct?
Right.
So how many did they say you actually had?
The first time it was 158, I believe.
Okay. And how many you needed again? Sorry.
We needed 145. So we were in the clear for all sense.
Right. So you were in the clear. You needed 145. You had 158. So you were in the clear by what, 13 or something like that. And so you were good. But that wasn't good enough for the person who challenged your signatures, correct? So they even went as far as taking it to court. Now this is expensive. This costs money. I mean, they really believe that your signatures. Are you known for committing fraud? Have a history of fraud? Okay. So I'm just wondering why someone would spend so much time and money to challenge Mr. Carlos Burgos. But anyway, they do that, right? And then what happens? The Board of Elections actually makes another determination. They did what I believe it's called a reversal of determination.
They called it a revised determination.
Oh, revised determination. Right. Yeah. So they changed it again, but this time they said, no, you actually did not have enough because there were more invalid signatures. How did that come about? How did the Board of Elections come to reviewing your signatures a second time?
That is a question that we've been pondering.
Oh, so you don't know that question?
We don't. That's what brought us all the way up to the appellate division.
Wow. So, and I just want to state that you are, I think, besides the other gentleman that was in, and the other gentleman's name, I'm sorry. Do you know the gentleman's name that was in the race also? Well, you two were the only ones who had your signatures challenged in this entire election cycle, correct?
I don't know about other races, but I
haven't heard anything, and I've been hearing a lot. But so anyway, so they challenge it. You go to court. The court, after the Board of Elections revises it the second time to say, hey, no, you don't have enough. They bring this to the court. The judge says, yep, you don't have enough, Mr. Burgos. You're off the ballot. Correct?
No. So the way it worked, let me just try to get to it quickly. So the board made a revised determination. And I'm happy to share this stuff because it's all public, thankfully.
No, absolutely. That's how I found out about it. I like to do my research on the people that I'm going to interview. So when I saw what was going on, I said, wow, it's a lot, so we definitely have some stuff to talk about, but I definitely want to get to a lot of Carlos Burgos as well. I just want to, and this is important. And I'll tell you why, Carlos, because the show here is to inform the people, right? So if they're not informed about issues and things like this that are happening in politics, they're not going to know, and they're going to think everything is all fine and dandy. They're going to think that possibly if you don't make it, you didn't make it legitimately, but they don't realize that there's so many little things going on, and I think they should be aware. They should actually be aware of this process of a signature. So that's why I'm bringing it up, and that's why I want to discuss it with you.
I think it's important. Let me just say real quick. So they issued a revised determination, brought us down to 147, which still kept us above the required mark. Then we went to court we went on trial for 4 days and had to deal with all sorts of things that, maybe not worth our time. But basically the judge then ruled in favor that we were off the ballot at that point. But the matter was still in the courts at that time. So, we just continued to appeal. So in that case, what we had to do is, New York State has an interesting, so the lower court is actually the Supreme Court, higher court is the Court of Appeals. In between that is the appellate division. And so we were in the Supreme Court, Westchester County. We appealed to the appellate court on two specific things that we can go to the appellate division and read about it. But one was the lack of specificity. So it just wasn't a specific claim.
Right.
There was like every single signature that we submitted was fraudulent
Right.
and forged, which is crazy.
Basically, just check everything that he's ever done.
Exactly.
And question everything.
And then the other thing was this revised determination, which just isn't allowed. And so really quick, I want to touch on that. When I was reading up, and I typed your name in, and I got some case law thing from some website where they talk about different case laws or cases, whatever. And that was one thing that they said, something about the revised determination was not legal or legitimate. Explain that. Yeah, basically, so boards of elections in this state, at least, are not allowed to make second determinations. What happens is after they make their first one, their work is over, and then they have to just sort of close it up and leave it to the court. And they can make a note for the courts to say, we need you to look at this one thing, but they can't sort of revise. It's just they can't do that. They meet. I think the term is functus officio. They sort of meet the end of their work,
right?
And so they can't do a second one. So that's basically that was the issue. And we don't know how they got to the second one. It's sort of
right. So it seems almost like by them making a revised determination when it went to court, it helped their case even more. Now that you were knocked down a bit 6 years. But anyway, so the first time around, they said, "Hey, you're done. You're not on the ballot anymore." And then what happened?
Then we appealed it to the appellate division with those two issues in mind, and then the appellate court ruled in our favor. So
right, and but they made a specific point about the revised determination. The judge.
Right, they said that they can't do that. Basically, boards can't do the revised determination, and the reason why they can't, the reason why we retained the signatures that were lost with the revised determination. That's why we're still on. Does that, am I? Well, listen, it's like legal. It's like legal.
Listen, basically, so they ruled in your favor. They basically said the Board of Election did something they were not supposed to do. And in fact, I think they've done that before, correct? It's not the first time that they made. Well, maybe that needs to be looked at. Why are they making multiple revised determinations here, huh? So anyway, in looking up, just doing my research, I found the gentleman, I actually reached out to the gentleman. I'll be honest. I reached out to him. I gave him the opportunity to come on. I was just very curious to know why he was pushing the issue, spending the money to want to get Carlos Burgos off the ballot. But you're back on because you're supposed to be on the ballot. There's a reason why you're here, Carlos, and I can feel it. This is a time where I believe that, things are going to really change. And it's not just, happening, on a national level, but really locally also. I see that similar thing. And we're getting a lot more grassroots organizers, people that are, coming in with track records of already helping the community, being involved with the youth, education, nonprofit organization. And I think that's excellent. That's great, right? We normally see the businessmen as the politicians, right? The guys that are already making all the money. And so it's good that we have people in the trenches. That's what I want to see. I definitely want to see that more. And talking to London last week, I got a good feeling from him as well. So Carlos, let's go to you. Let's talk about your policies. What do you want to do, right? If elected, what does day one look like for you?
Oh, day one looks so good. Day one looks like day 30 though, I'll tell you, because they're going to be working before then, But I think the benefit of me coming in sort of in the way that I am, one, I have a lot of experience in this neighborhood. I've been living here in these few blocks for most of my life, but I need to build really great, solid relationships in government. And so I'll be doing that in advance of day one, and so that's going to be really top of mind is how can I build really strong relationships, so that I can get to executing things. There's a few things that I would really like to happen. One is I really want to figure out how to have consistent infrastructure, repair and maintenance throughout the year, not only during election time, right? So that's sort of the big thing, right? Like we need to figure out how we can not do that stuff just when it's time to get elected. Anyway, so that's one. The other thing is it depends on where this affordable housing ordinance is at the time. I imagine that, I don't know really. It keeps getting pushed back. So I assume it'll get pushed back through this election cycle and then they'll vote on it before I get in. But If it's still up in the air, I'm voting yes for it. Absolutely, no problem. We need at least 20%.
Yes.
If anything, maybe more. Last thing I'll say before you jump on to the next thing is, I really am interested in thinking about establishing an conservation advisory committee, because, today was a great day to think about all the flooding that's happening across. We have Sawmill and Bronx River right in our district.
It gets bad.
And it's terrible, and there's no need for that. And guess who chairs the environmental committee? So John Ruba. Exactly.
Okay.
So, happy to sort of make some real headway in doing some environmental stuff. I've been in touch with some environmental groups here. They're excited to get me in. And so I think
that's excellent. I mean, that's great. I don't hear many candidates talking about that, environmental issues. You hear the same, common problems, right? And don't get me wrong. The public schools, the education system is a big, big issue and very important, right? But, that seems to be like the common, cliche almost topic, although I'm not minimizing it. But I appreciate that you can actually talk about something a little bit different than I've heard other candidates talk about. So that's very interesting that you're looking at things in that way. Now, I do want to go back a little bit to talking about the, the development, the Affordable Housing Ordinance, right? Because I've been doing a little homework on that and research myself. And actually, I was up till 3 o'clock in the morning last night. Let me tell you, Carlos, I was doing some amazing research, incredible. And the things that I'm finding out, it's just unbelievable. Actually, I have a client that I'm still waiting for them to get permits. So I just realized, I think there's like 3 attorneys. If I work with them or I hire them, I think my permits will get through. Right. But anyway, talk to me about the city ordinance, or the Affordable Housing Ordinance, because from what I understand, this was something that was, brought on in the 80s or late 80s, when they had the whole, segregation issues within the schools, and, the affordable housing were concentrated to a specific section of town, and they wanted to kind of, bring more affordable housing to areas like in Central Park. Explain that to me a little bit, Carlos, and what your opinion and what would you like to do towards that?
Sure. Thanks. So my position is just very clearly, I'll vote yes on the current ordinance right now. But to give some context to it, and all that I've learned, a lot of what I've learned is through the Working Families Party, who gave me their endorsement and invited me to a bunch of trainings and sort of, schooled me on this stuff. But essentially what happens is when a large developer comes in, they are now currently mandated to reserve or allocate 10% of the units as affordable housing units. So, some of us know very well that even though it's called affordable, it doesn't actually mean it's affordable, right? So we know that, and we're living with that for now. My dream is to make them actually affordable. Right. We're not there yet. So the current piece of legislation pushes that 10% up to 20%. And it says, okay, new large developers, you got to get us to 20% of those units need to be affordable. I think 20% is fine, sure, not to minimize the work that we've gotten to get here, but I'm happily saying we should be looking at 30% and 40%. And what about a whole building of affordable housing units? What could that look like?
Right. Well, I think that, and from what I was looking at, right, in terms of the developments and stuff, and they want to keep it at 10. And I think, and if I'm not mistaken, in inclusionary something development, where if the building is going to have 99 units or more, then it's kept at 10%, right? And I think anything below that would be 20%. Multifamily homes, multifamily, obviously, buildings, and whether they were for rent or for sale, right? So the developers want to keep it because obviously they're building big buildings, right? 99 or more. I see one, they're proposing 1,300 units, right? And they want to keep that at 10%. But here's what they're proposing, which I don't understand. And maybe someone can make it, help me understand this. What they want instead is they propose to set aside some money, right? To use that to put in an affordable housing trust, right? And then to use that money at a later date to build affordable housing elsewhere. Right. But that sounds like to me like you're just pushing away the people who cannot afford to live in the new developments to a certain section of town, which is something that was a big hot topic in the late 80s. Right. The concentration of affordable housing to one particular side. What do you tell me about that, Carlos? I mean, am I understanding that correctly? Is that something that they're proposing as a kind of compromise to the legislation that's
Yeah,
being set forth?
yeah, and what I think city council should be doing, and as a whole, is saying no, that's unacceptable, because the people are saying that's unacceptable, and we want to keep people here who live here, keep people who live here, right? And then, and so that's one. The thing that I'm thinking about as you're talking is how this is all rental. These are all rental units, you know.
Right.
And I'm you know, I've been talking more about how my family, my parents were pushed out of Yonkers, this very district, because they can't afford it, right? And where did they go? They went to Co-op City, you know, the famous Michelama program that, you know, I would love to see some version of that in Yonkers. I don't see why it's not possible. I'm obviously not a developer, but I couldn't. You want me to explain what that? Go ahead.
No, I was just going to jump in because when you say that, you know, that your parents went over to Co-op City, and you wish you could see something like that here in Yonkers. One of the things that the planning board likes to mention is that they are not New York City, right? We're Yonkers, we're Westchester, Yonkers, small city. You can't compare, Yonkers to New York City. Totally different, right? So when you mentioned that, that's what I was thinking of. You know, you're comparing it. That would be the rebuttal, I guess, that they would give you, Carlos, right? And then how would you rebuttal?
People also say the North Bronx isn't the city. That would be my response.
Yonkers is upstate, actually.
Right, exactly. I mean, listen, I'm not saying it's the same thing. What I'm saying is that there needs to be some political will, and there needs to be some creativity, rather than just sort of accepting what the developers are telling us. You know, like we have to have, like, you know, somebody, you know, anyway, we have to say, hey, what are you doing for the people? And if you're not doing anything for the people, we're going to find somebody else who's going to do something for the people. And that's
absolutely.
It.
Absolutely. And I completely agree 1000%. And what I don't understand also, if they're willing to, is it a money issue? Do they want to keep it at 10% because is it a money issue?
I think it's, I mean, I'm
asking.
I would imagine you make much more money if you have less affordable housing units in your development than if you have more. And so
well, my question is, and the reason why I ask is because it doesn't seem like it's a money issue. Not to me. It doesn't.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It seems like it's a certain type of people issue.
Yeah. Well, it's classist. I mean, we know housing is classist. It's been classist. It's, you know, and it's tied up in obviously it's racialized, it's classist. That's just what it is. And
I mean, it's all about marketing, right? I got an MBA in finance and marketing, right? So I understand marketing a little bit. And, you know, they want to attract people from the city to these developments, right? So it's all about the new people. It's nothing about the people that are here. You know, you want to attract people from the city, right? But they don't want I guess certain people, right, quote unquote, being in these developments that may deter certain other people from, moving there, right? Because if you're willing to put money aside and build developments, affordable housing developments elsewhere, you're spending money, right? So it's not a money issue because you're going to spend money anyway. It's a people issue. It's a let's keep these people out of these development issue.
Yeah, I can buy that. Yeah.
I'm just saying, I could be wrong.
I think it's all interconnected.
I mean, obviously they want to make money, but these guys got a lot of money already. Yeah. These good rich guys, and your opponent, and the reason I bring this up, it's a very hot topic, and your opponent, the incumbent, wants to steamroll ahead. He doesn't want to negotiate more with the developers. Why?
I mean, there's a lot of speculation. I'll let others speculate, but my focus is on the decision. He's pledged to vote no on the ordinance. I'm pledging to vote yes and push us to 30%. I'm happy to do. I mean, again, like that's just what I can focus on. Again, I get lost in speculation.
Well, I'm not looking for to be crazy with 30%, but I think we should negotiate more. I just, even if we try, just to try, right? Like at least you try. Right, I can say that you tried, and in my research also, it just kind of something hit me. I said, are these the same developers that are the landlords of Mr. Rubo? Right. So, is there a conflict of interest? And if there is a conflict of interest, should that not be made known? Should maybe he step aside and say, "Hey, there's a conflict of interest there," right? They're my landlords. I mean, I could be totally wrong. I'm just saying, and I'm not accusing anyone. I'm just saying, but if you can make that argument, right? So I think that just to avoid that argument, or just to avoid that, potential accusation, and just to make sure that it's 1,000% fair, and that whatever it is that you're doing is for the people, maybe you should step away. Maybe you shouldn't push so hard, right? I mean, because it just doesn't look right. Just doesn't look right. And I hear and I know the city council president, Mike Cater, has got some stuff going on because of some nonsense also. And I just wonder, it's a similar thing. It's actually worse, I think, and no one's saying anything. And it's just crazy what's going on in your race. And so I was very excited to talk to you, right? And just I wanted to, make that make the people aware of what's going on in these races. So they just have a better understanding of Yonkers politics, right? We want to make change. We talk about that a lot. Well, here are the people that are here to make change. They need to be voted in. You need to go to the polls. You need to learn about them. You need to hear what's going on. And that's what I'm here to do, Carlos. So I want to talk more about you. Let's get off the subject. We know how you feel. You want 30%. You want 50% if you could get.
I want it all to be affordable. I don't want nobody
it all to be affordable. But Carlos, as a businessman,
last thing I'll say is it's already affordable for some people. The units that aren't affordable are affordable for some people.
And what do you mean by that?
It's like you said, they want to attract a certain socioeconomic status. So it is affordable for some and unaffordable for a lot. And what I'm saying is we need to make it affordable for the people who are already here. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And that's my big concern, that the people that have been living in Yonkers for their whole life are the ones that are getting shafted, right? The affordable housing or this ordinance would actually benefit the people that have been living here in Yonkers all their life the most. Right. And really quick before I go off here, I do want to talk about it in terms of social, the social aspect of it, right? Let's take my life, for example. I left Yonkers. I grew up in Buena Vista, right there by, all that stuff, development and everything. I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? Complete 180, right? Like I've said this many times before. The point I'm trying to make is that having been put into this environment with different people allowed me to grow so much more as a person. I became more well-rounded, right? I have friends from all colors, walks of life, so different class, some had big homes, 6 bathrooms in their house. And I was like, oh my gosh, I only grew up with 1 bathroom, and I got to know different people. That benefited me in life. So if we continue to just put, affordable housing in one area and keep them away from, I guess, the rest of the people, right? Yeah. There's a advantage right there, and I think that it's important that we integrate also housing, not just the schools, but housing as well. And I think that benefits kids, man, overall. And this is why I want to see that pushed up. And I just want to bring that, my wife being a social worker, I got to talk about it in terms like that, the social aspect of it. But Carlos, man, I appreciate you fighting. And I agree with you 1,000%. But as a businessman too, I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm a businessman, right? So I understand where the developers come from in a way, right? I understand for them, it's about the bottom line, right? Mm-hmm. They don't, you get to a certain point sometimes, some of these guys, and I've seen it, they don't see humans. Mm-hmm. They just see numbers. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy. And it's almost not intentional, but they just get to that point, right? So, there has to be negotiation. I don't know about 50%, 30, I don't know. I would have to look at the numbers. I would have to see the developers' financial statements and stuff to see what they're really making or whatever. But from a business point of view, I would say, Carlos, I don't know about 30, maybe 40, but I think that 20% is definitely doable. But I think at least the effort should be made, and we shouldn't be steamrolling through to push for the developers, right? Because that seems like it's all we care about, the developers. So I want to see more. But anyway, Carlos, let's get off the developments, right? Let's talk a little bit. Let's talk other stuff, Carlos. Let's talk infrastructure, right? Let's talk city infrastructure. Talk to me. Where do you see that improvements are needed? Are improvements needed?
Yes, and I'll tell you where. And I'll tell you how I learned about this. I've spent so much time personally myself talking to people in my district, and more often than not, it's like if you don't work to pave these roads, I'm not voting for you, And at
It's that
first,
serious, huh?
At first I was like, oh, but everybody talks about the roads, it's like everybody talks about the roads, right? That was sort of my initial sort of reaction. But then I was reminded of my own experience here, right? I've memorized the potholes, I know where to.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I know where I need to move, I could grab my eyes closed and miss the pothole.
I know what you mean.
They've been there for a decade, and so it's like, come on, nobody's getting to. So that stuff, it's just like, I live on Bronx River Road, I've thought about what a bike lane would look like on Bronx River Road. I see so many bikers, and so, but the main thing is these potholes that we've memorized need to go, and they don't need to get this little puzzle piece thing that one of my constituents talks about. Is like, we don't need the puzzle thing,
right?
We need actual fix,
like the black top, because they just patch it, right? And after a while, it just goes back to the way it is. You know how many times I've busted a tire and had to replace a tire, crack the rim? It's ridiculous. And even though I've memorized it, right? So that's definitely a huge concern, huge concern. And those guys on those little scooters with no helmets are scaring me. They're gonna hit one of those potholes and it's gonna be done, right? Yeah. But I want to talk about in terms of mental health also, and what it's doing to the community at large, right? And the homelessness and stuff, the drug addiction, right? In terms of infrastructure and building, facilities to address these needs, that it seems to be getting worse. Yeah. What are your plans if elected? How do we address the homelessness, the drug addiction within the young people today? I mean, I'm seeing, see guys just walking by, you can tell they're totally on something, right? What do we build? I see beautiful development, but what are we building to address the needs of that population?
Yeah, no, thanks for you're making all the connections here. I'm doing less than I need to do, but the thing is that the infrastructure issue is a mental health issue, is a class issue, is a development issue. And so I appreciate you connecting that. Yeah, I appreciate, because the reality is I'm thinking about one issue that keeps coming up is the street lighting in the neighborhoods, right? And people are experiencing stress because there's not adequate lighting in particular areas when they need to get off the bus to walk home to work. And there's one stop that is known. Good evening. There's one. I love doing these comments come up.
I just put them up so people can see it. Oh, I'm sorry, not to distract you.
Oh, it's great. I'm here for it. There's one spot in my district that the public bus actually drops people off in a different location so that they don't have to walk in the dark spots in the street. And so, this is not an unknown thing. It's not revolutionary. The thing that will change it is if we sort of take action, prioritize it,
just address it.
Just do it. Not do
it. Like Nike. My wife and I were talking about the other day in the back. This is like Nike. Just do it.
So what I'll say about that is it's important because people are stressed. People don't feel comfortable in their neighborhoods. They're worried about things, and that contributes to mental health stuff, right? And so that is the connection that I appreciate you making. Drug addiction and the facilities, and also in my district specifically, what they call property crime, which is just like stolen packages, lost bikes, stolen bikes, things like that. That's the big issue in this particular area. And look, there's not one solution. It's all connected, right? But I think that what the benefit of having me in office will be that I will talk to people all the time, and I'll be in touch, and I'll be centering those issues and raising them in the council nonstop. So that we ensure that we're thinking about the realities of even if it's shifting times, right? In 2 years, we don't know what's going to happen, right? We didn't know a pandemic was coming. And so, whatever comes, my goal and what I'll continue to do, my mission really is to be in touch with people. Sort of in higher ed, we call it sort of having the student pulse, So it's like having the constituent pulse,
Right.
And how can we have the constituent pulse and keep it centered in the meetings in the council? So that's how I think about it. But it's complex issues.
I believe you, though. Carlos, I believe you. And I think that that's what I like about, the candidates that I see, within London, Stella, Sue Chow. I believe that they will be in the community. I think that they will absolutely be in the community, addressing every issue that you can possibly address. You might drive yourself crazy trying to fix every problem. That's what I get from you, and that's why I'm excited about this election cycle. And this is why I did this. I want to inform people. I want to bring, the Carlos Burgos to the people, the London Rays, to the people, right? The community people. So I believe you. I can see you just walking down. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? And helping every single person in your district. But besides, the stolen Amazon packages, right? Because that's kind of what happens in my area too.
Exactly.
And the stolen bikes. And I know about that, right? I grew up in the hood. We knew where to go get the bikes. You know what I mean?
Bike. Yeah.
We knew where they would leave their bikes on the driveway. They were so trustworthy. But joking aside. But what other issues are there? Any more real dire, specific, like severe maybe issues within your district that is not being addressed? What is has knocked on the door and they just there's maybe something that it's a huge problem, like in terms of drug addiction. Do you tend to see that in your district? Do you have do you see the homelessness population kind of affecting your district?
This is where again, the advantage of having me in the council. This is where me being in the council is going to really pay off, because what we do in this district, what we like to do in Yonkers, is think about District 4 as a district that is resolved from these issues, right? We don't see homeless people on the street. We don't, maybe by the train station, but maybe they don't live here anyways, and few things. One, maybe that's not true. Maybe that's just not true. Maybe they are here and we're just not, right. We have blinders on. But if that is the case, it doesn't mean that it's not something I should care about. It doesn't mean that it's not something that I do care about. It means that it's something I need to center even more and be conscious of when I'm making decisions along a panel of city council people, right? And that's where, I think we need somebody I need to be in that seat, and I'm going to be in that seat, and I'm going to think about really critically engaging these topics and ideas beyond just the district. But what I'll say is, sure, we have drug problems in this district, but we have people with resources who, right. Are able to right. Engage in drug abuse in a way that does not put them at risk in different communities and different neighborhoods in our city. And so, sure, we have like alcoholism and domestic abuse. I mean, I hear it I live in a building. I hear things all the time, all night long, right. And but we're sheltered and contained and shielded from the scrutiny that other neighborhoods are. And I will say my district goes up to by school 13, and and so there are some, that is like the sort of not wealthier part of my district, right? And it is the area that people are like, oh, this is District 4, and so it's going to take special attention from me, in a few months to make sure that I'm not thinking about just this area, but I'm going across the little corners that right. District 4 extends to.
Right. And how has the reception been for you when knocking on doors?
It's so good.
How have people welcomed you?
It's so good, Fred. This is the best part. That's why I'm still here. That's why I paid all that money to stay in court. That's why when we went up to the Court of Appeals after the Second Appellate Division, I still stood in and I still continued to fight, because when I talk to people, they're like, oh, you're running. Oh, I've never had a candidate come to my neighborhood.
Really?
I can't tell you how many people say that. Oh, nobody ever comes around here. With the brother I met a few months ago, we've never had anybody come up here. And I'm like, well, I'm here. So,
well, that's good. And I'm getting a lot of comments. So I want to go through some of them. All right, just really quick. All right, and the first one here is from Carolyn Elizabeth Marie. There should have been a drawing as well as, and the Board of Elections failed to do that. Also, if that happens, names should be in alphabetical order. That also was not done. Corruption at its lowest. Okay. I guess she's referring to the ballot issue that you had there. And I'll continue. Maybe we got to continue her comment. When Carlos Burgos was put back on the ballot, the Board of Elections should have done a drawing. They did not. Also, if there was no time for a drawing, then it should be alphabetical order on the ballot, and it is not. Explain that. Which Carolyn is saying there, Carlos?
Yeah, no, sure.
And thank you, by the way, Carolyn, for your comment.
Yeah, Carolyn, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, the way it works is, and most people had their drawing right after the Supreme Court decision was made. And so once we were in the appellate division, the drawings were done. My race was not drawn. Basically, a ballot drawing basically says they pick a name out of a hat, and then whoever's name gets picked gets put on first, second name gets picked gets put on second, third name, etc. And there's all the political science that says if your name is first, you have an advantage, right? So everybody fights, to get first.
Because you got a lot of people that really don't care, and they're just going to mark the closest one, right, to the pencil.
Or they're there for one race, and then they just sort of pick the one that's closest.
And that's usually what I've done. And I'll be honest. I'm going to change, though. I'm going to change the way I do things, And Maddie saying good evening. Maddie from Pamela's Big Heart Foundation to support of the show. We appreciate you, Maddie. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. And my guy from City Yonkers Incorporated, the hats. He makes great hats. I actually picked up 3 today, so I just want to shout him out. All right, he's making hats that if you're a pro Yonkers guy like me, pro Yonkers people, man, go check out CYI hats on Facebook. City of Yonkers Incorporated. Dope hats. Thank you for the comment. And Carolyn is very vocal today. She's very vocal.
So they didn't do a drawing. That's the point. They didn't do a drawing. They were supposed to do a drawing. But they didn't.
Oh, so Carolyn again says Councilman Rubo is chair of real estate committee. Yes, he is. Yet his landlord for the brewery is AMS Acquisitions. He should be recusing himself. It's a violation of the code of ethics. And that's what we were talking about, right? And again, I'm not, it's not about trying to be accusatory or say for sure something's going on, but we want to be 1,000% sure, right? So we don't want any possible inkling of maybe potential because you recused yourself. You're not involved, right? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, if there's a conflict of interest, we should recuse ourselves. I mean, it's very simple. I'm happy.
I think it's a severe conflict of interest, actually. And especially for as hard as it's being pushed. I mean, I would kind of lay low a little bit if it was me. And not to say that there aren't any favors, that there are favors being given, that, maybe not. We don't know. But we don't know if those favors will come later on down the line, right? So we have to, protect the integrity of our political system here in Yonkers. And I think that's a big thing that's going on. And again, nationally as well. And I always got to shout out my wife, Miss Andrea Vasquez. Diversity is beneficial for all. Yes. Right. We were talking about this morning, right? You have to, bring people together. You can't, segregate folks. Right. And based on class, based on color, based on whatever, and I think that's what, limiting the, the amount of affordable units in the development. Definitely, I think it just keeps that from happening, that integration, people getting to know each other from all walks of life, So I definitely agree with that. And I go to one more comment. I don't know. Should I put this one up? Carolyn. Exactly. Rubo should be under investigation. Well, I hear the city council president is. It would only be fair, but we don't live in a world that's fair, right? It's not the way it works. But yeah, I mean, maybe there should be one, but I guess there isn't. I don't know. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And a question I have to ask you, Carlos, what do you feel about and I'm not just picking on anyone because this seems to have happened quite a bit recently. Candidates who go from one party to other, and it's been primarily Republican to Democrat, such as your opponent. Is he a true Democrat? And the reason why I bring that up is because the primaries will pretty much dictate who's going to be the councilman for District 4, correct? The Democratic primaries. So basically, only the Democrats are really, involved in choosing the person.
Yeah. Look, I think one of the voters in my district said it best. He said, you know, if you're angry with your party, stick with your party and work with your party. You know, and that was one of the voters in my district's perspective, and I appreciated that, because I was like, oh, okay, I sort of hadn't, you know, it didn't occur to me that could be a you know, an approach. I think you see a lot of people sort of moving around, but what I'll say is, if you move around, vote in line with that movement, right? That's kind of what I think about. Like, it's fine if you move from Dem to Republican or Republican to Dem, but what does your voting record look like? What's your stance on issues? You know, and we've seen very clearly that my opponent hasn't shifted his stance on a lot of really important issues that Democrats are supporting in this council. You know, and so that's
specifically, give me
the housing.
An example.
The housing is one low-hanging fruit. The other one that's very recent and low-hanging fruit is, you know, they voted to support this. It was like a resolution to DC, Washington DC, to sort of encourage them and support them in conducting a study on reparations.
Right.
And, you know, Rubo voted against that.
And that was recent.
That was a few, I forget the date, but that's very recent, you know. But
right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, has anyone mentioned that? Has anyone, when you've knocked on the door, say, you know, I don't like the, you know, because he's flip-flopped and I'm not going to vote for someone who was a Republican. He's really not, you know, has anyone mentioned, you know, something like that? Any of the constituents in the district?
Yeah, you know, a lot of, I think us political nerds, we like to think that, like, everybody knows what's up, you know, but for a city council race, you know, name recognition is really low. You know, most people don't know their council person, no matter how much we think everybody knows who this guy is. Like, many people don't, you know. Right. And the reality is that right now Rubo is trying to convince the people who voted against him last time he won, you know. So he won as a Republican, and so many people who were Democrat voted against him. They voted for the Democratic candidate, or you know, just against him. And so right now a lot of people are I mean, every now and then someone will say, "Oh yeah, he switched over. That's fine." But most of the time, people are like, "Oh, I thought he was a Republican. You know, I didn't realize he was running as a Dem." You know, so so there's that. That's been the response for the most part. It's like, "Oh, I didn't realize he was a Democrat." You know, or they're very happy to have an option. You know, like very, very happy that someone stuck through this mess to provide them with an option, and that the option is not some rando that I'm like worth, you know. Time.
That, because I just don't, you know, I don't know. I don't understand how, you know, and this happened in the middle of a term, right? And you can't. And it's about the numbers, right? Let's be honest. I'm a smart guy, right? I know strategy. I'm all about strategy. I'm very strategic. I'm methodical.
I'm with you.
You know what I love about me, because I got this street thing about me. You know, I'm from the hood.
I love
the street. But I'm very like nerdy too. I'm like a nerd. You know, my wife says I'm a gangster nerd. I don't know what that means. But yeah, you know, so strategy wise, right? You look at the numbers, right? It makes sense. I want to stay in the seat. I'm gonna have to shift because I could lose the race based on the lack of number of voters. Just not enough for the Republicans. So I mean, it's just a lot of things that, and I'm not trying to pick on them. I mean, I'm talking about it just because it's your race, right? This is the race that we're talking about. But it's just, we have to be you know, real and straight up. Hey, this is what you guys are doing. It's not just, you know, this particular gentleman. It's politicians in general, right? And every single race in this city, we need to start to identify the people that are in there to actually help the people, and identify those that are in there to help their pockets. Oh, see how excited I got. It's true. And in my research, it seems like there's a lot of just politicians looking to get hired or elected to fatten their pockets. You know, it's a whole craziness going on, and I'm doing my investigation. I'm researching it because I'm fed up a little bit about it. You know, it affects the little people, and they don't even realize why they're being affected.
No,
they don't realize why their permits can't get through at 2-3 years for a permit, because you got these developers, you know, all up and down the planning boards, but you know, and they're just so busy with them. You know, you get these special permits and all that. What? I have two family or single family home. I just need a simple permit, right? So it's just, it's enough is enough, right? It's enough is enough. And I think the people need to be informed. And I think that we need to start to put candidates and people in these positions that are really here for help to help the people. Right. And I get it. We need to build the city of Yonkers. You need to have some kind of business sense, right? You want to have different skill sets, right? That you can use to help benefit the city and improve it again. And I get that. But it seems like the people always get shafted, man. Right.
Yeah.
Am I lying?
No. To your wife's point, diversity is really important. I think on the council, diversity is going to be important too.
Absolutely.
Right? And like, just because I think people, I guess I'm running a really good campaign because people seem really worried, but I think the worry is
well, that's what I hear. I'm just keeping it honest.
Here's what I'll say though. The great thing about when I'll be on the council is that I will create some sort of checks and balances for folks so that we can have a more round perspective on the council, which I think is helpful. Just to your wife's point about diversity of thought on the council.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure of, and I don't want to guess of your ethnicity, your background, but definitely I would imagine Latino, Hispanic, something, but we're like I was talking to London Rays about this last week, and Hispanics make up 38% of the population. Some believe it's more. I don't know. They believe it's a lot more, but I don't see that same representation in city government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of Italians, got Arabic, and we got one or two Hispanics, maybe a couple, blacks, but it's not really reflective of our community.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, no, and it matters. It really shapes. I mean, I agree with a grain of salt because we know our feminist sisters have told us skin folk ain't always kinfolk, right? And so we know that that's not always the case. That just because you look like me doesn't mean you're going to care about me. But but there's a likelihood there that you will, right? And regardless, there's a need to just like you said, reflect the community that
and I'm not trying to make it about identity politics, right? But I think that if we have to have people that understand a good portion of their community, right? And so they can truly help them in the best possible sense. But so again, and I'm not saying go vote for someone because they're Hispanic or they're black or they're white or whatever. I'm not saying that. We definitely must vote on the issues, right? That is definitely most important. And going back to what you said, there are some folks, what did you say? They have the same skin, color.
Skin folk. I think it was. I'm forgetting who. I don't want to miss.
And basically, what you're saying is that just because we have the same skin color does not mean that we are, supportive of each other, right? Or we're looking out for each other, right? And I agree. And I'm tired of that. I'll be honest, Carlos. I'm tired of the sellout.
Yeah, no, it's Zora Neale Hurston for the record. Zora Neale Hurston let us know that all skin folk are kinfolk.
If you're not helping your people, you're a sellout, and you got to go. You got to go. You got to go. And again, I'm not trying to make this about identity politics, but I think that when you're doing things that are affecting your people negatively because your concern is your pocket or remaining in a certain position, it's time to go.
For sure.
That's what I think.
No,
maybe
I
I'm
agree.
crazy. Maybe I'm crazy.
I'm with you. I think it goes back to the questions of conflicts of interest.
By the way, let me ask you. You might know this, right? You should know this, right? Where can and can't you put campaign signs?
Oh, great question. You can only put campaign signs on private places, so like homes, businesses.
Not at the end of the exit of a highway or parkway.
Correct. Not at the end.
What about telephone poles?
No.
Light poles?
No. Not that
mailboxes.
Inside a mailbox?
No. On the outside of mailboxes. Taped to the mailbox.
The person agrees, like if it's my mailbox.
No. The U.S. Postal.
No, like the blue ones.
The post office. Well, the green one. Green.
No, you can't. No, you can't. Put them on. My understanding is you can't. That's why mine aren't on those things.
So you're telling me that there are a bunch of candidates just not following the rules?
Hey, my signs are at people's homes and they're making waves because people tell me they're everywhere. So I'm grateful for everyone to put up a sign. And if you want a sign, I got maybe one or two left. So.
So you're putting signs where they're not, because I see them all over, and I see signs of people that are not in that district. I don't. Why? So someone going to vote, or are you just hoping that people in your district are passing by that particular area?
That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Well, a good friend of mine insisted that he takes my sign, so I have one sign outside of my district, but I
Shame
don't know
on
why.
you, Carlos.
Well, it's in his
Shame
house,
on
so
you.
it's not like it's.
No, I'm kidding. I get it. Private property, I get because I see that also. But I mean, I see it on public property on the end of highways, and the person's not even representing that district or that area. So I was trying to get it clear because I see them all over, and I'm just like, I can't imagine that they're just not caring about the rules.
Well, the department. Well, my understanding is I don't know exactly the department. I shouldn't say right now. I imagine it was Public Works, but I'm not sure. Someone is responsible for taking them down.
Yeah, they haven't been taken down.
Well, then, I mean, that's.
They've been. They're still there.
I bet if mine were up, they'd be taken down
Oh yeah,
quickly.
you're Carlos Burgos. We don't like
Yeah.
you. And you know what? I'm just reminded. Also, I was told, and I didn't actually see it myself, and I wanted to confirm it with you. It was a Yonkers Tribune article about you, and it
Oh,
mentioned something about your hair. Is
oh,
that
did it?
correct? Well, I'm asking. I was told that they said something about cutting your hair, and
Oh, was it an art? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yonkers Tribune. Yeah. So I didn't see it. I was trying. I didn't get to look it up, but I didn't know if you had saw that and if it was true. And if it was, I was just going to go off on that guy.
I don't know if he wrote it. Was it? It might have been a comment, but if it was an article,
Oh, a
that's
comment by somebody. Maybe he
yeah.
put it in the article or something. But this is just it shows maybe that we're not quite there yet, right? We still have ways to go.
No, we're totally there. You have a very few folks who are trying to derail and distract from my message, which is very clear that we're here for people
Right.
and not development companies. And you have people who are very invested in making money through these elections. And those are people who are saying things off the rails. They're also calling me a socialist, communist.
Right. I heard. That's right. You were called a socialist
all sorts of stuff. But people who I talk to are like, dude, I got a text. Maybe that's why I'm getting some text messages. Don't cut your hair, you know.
No, man, it's great.
I'm like, I'm not interested in cutting. I got to the Ivy League with my, whatever. I don't care.
I just saw that as a comment that was racially motivated.
Of course, because because they have nothing else to say about me. There's nothing else to say.
But who wants you? I mean, this is public record, right? So I'm going to say it. Who is the Augustine Morales gentleman? I mean, and you can go online and look this up. I mean, why do they dislike you, Carlos?
It's not about me. That's the thing. Like this campaign is about this is this campaign is not about me. It's about what we're trying to do, which is do some great work for the people and not focus on making money. And that's what this is about. And they're trying to get in the way of that kind of political movement, which we are not going to let get in the way. And they tried really hard in court and it didn't work. And they're trying really hard, with all these crazy comments about my hair, whatever. Right. And we're just not,
And Carlos, I want to say that you're actually doing an amazing job. You're doing an outstanding job. I have a lot of respect for people that are educated, that get their education, that and I'm not saying that's the only, I don't want to one saying, hey, but I do have a lot of respect for those that go and get PhDs and masters and stuff. You're a hardworking guy. You're always working. You're out there, and every time I speak to you, I get this sense of this guy's sharp, man. This guy is very bright. This guy is very motivated. This guy really wants to bring something great to this community, and I want to see that. I want to see that, Carlos. I believe you because I'm here for the people like you. And I believe that everything you said tonight, you're going to do because you've already been doing it. And I've said this about London. And I've said this before some other person, that I've interviewed because I feel it. I have a good thing of energy, right? And I believe that. And it's sad that there's this entity or whatever that's out there trying to prevent you from moving forward, right? From being that change that this city needs. We're done with the old politics. Time to go. It's time to go. I mean, there's just a lot going on. But Carlos, I appreciate everything. I appreciate you talking with me this evening. And I want to give you an opportunity now just to say anything that you want to say that you have not said. Let it be known now. What do you want the people of Yonkers, and particularly your district, to know about Carlos? Why should they vote for Carlos? Why are you the guy that they are going to go to the poll and vote on June 22nd for?
Yeah, no, they should start voting on June 12th. Early voting starts in a few days. Let's get to it.
There you go.
And look, the reason many people know the reason is because they know. And I think what you're saying, thanks for saying what you said earlier. People really, we know when people are not being honest with us. We know when people are being fake. And this is a city council race. This is a sixth of Yonkers. You know, we're a big city right next to a mega city. And so, you know, in context, we're a tight community, and people know that, you know, when they see me, they see an honest person who is genuinely interested in doing work that is thankless and, and committing my efforts to people. And I truly believe that people are going to come out. They've committed in person. They've committed through email and text and phone calls that they'll come out and vote for me. And I'm sure that they will. I'm expecting that. And, we got so many signatures from people who said that they would, and people are telling their friends. So I'm not under any mystery that we don't have this solidly locked in, but we just need to continue to, fight beyond that and work together in coalition. So I'm excited. I think we are so close to being there. We just need to keep hanging on, keep pushing as a group. If you want to come help me knock on doors, I'll be doing that until my feet fall off. But I feel confident that people are going to come out and vote for me. I really do. And I'm not trying to be cocky or anything like that, but it's because I've been talking to voters and specifically Democrats, who were in charge of this election, and I know what they want. They want somebody who cares about them. They want someone who centers education. They want someone who thinks about families, who has a kid in the public schools, who's been, active in his PTA and is not just saying it, right? Like my opponent likes to just, now all of a sudden he's a PTA member. Anyway, so, people know that. I trust everyone who's told me that they will vote for me, and, and let's get it. This is it. We have work to do. The vote is just the beginning. We're chugging on right after that. So
I think that we're in a time where people are starting to see it. They're starting to see it, and from the national, state, down the local, they're starting to see the corruption. They're starting to see the BS from the politicians, right? Because actions speak louder than words. And they're starting to see and say, hey, this guy said this. He's been saying that for many years, but what has he done? Like you said, they're not in the community. They're only there when they want to get voted. I actually see them more at ribbon cuttings with developers than I do in the community. But I do want to bring up something really quick because someone mentioned it. That someone actually went and found it. And I want to thank you, Maddie. Maddie found the article actually with the Yonkers Tribune where they do discuss your hair. So Mr. Hezzy, I think you owe Carlos or whoever put that owes him an apology. We're not taking that. We're not standing for that. Okay. And the actual comment was, Burgos, we don't give a damn if or when you filed with the board. To be honest, we have only one question. When the hell are you getting a fresh cut?
Look, man, I know better than to let stuff like that get under my skin.
Absolutely not.
We have so much work to do that is about building our community and focusing on things that matter. And you know what? That person is going to benefit greatly from the work that I do when I'm in the council. And I'm happy for that. You know what I mean? Because that's something that's just like, it's got nothing to do with anything.
No.
And I'm not concerned. My son loves my hair. People love my hair.
I love your hair.
It's the way it comes out of my head.
I love your hair. And when you get elected, you're going to be in that city council doing exactly what you said you're going to do here tonight with that hair. Just like that. And this just should go tell everybody the type of race that some candidates are running. Right? And it shows their integrity.
If you've got nothing else on me, you're going to have to start making up stuff about my hair.
It shows their integrity. Right. So, and I'm sorry, Carlos, I want to apologize to you, man. For that, the things that you've gone through, the things that people have said, that bothers me. I've actually been asked, would I consider running for political office? No, because if someone said that to me, we're going to be fighting. Remember, I'm from the street, Buena Vista, Riverdale, baby. You know what I'm saying? And I would. I just couldn't stand that. And that just disgusts me and it bothers me. And I hope you kick ass, Carlos, just because of that. And we all know where that's coming from, right? We're not stupid. I got a message from somebody. We don't know where that's coming from. So, Carlos, keep it up, man. Keep doing your thing. Stay strong, brother. I appreciate everything you're doing, man. The community appreciates you. You got a lot of comments from people. You got the support. I see it. And people want change. We're done. We're done with the folks who are out here making money, you know. So, Carlos, thank you again. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. And if there's anything we can do here, just reach out. You know, if we can do it, we'll do it. Again, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody that watched, that commented. Maddie, Carolyn, Lauren Cater, good evening. CYI Hats, thank you very much. By the way, the show was sponsored by CYI Hats, City of Yonkers Incorporated hats, okay? These are dope hats, Carlos. You should get one.
I'm getting one right now. You see me logging in?
There you go. But then again, we won't be able to see your hair.
Oh, it's all right. We'll make it work.
No, you definitely got to rock one. Get one. Everyone out there should support my guy. Thank you so much, Carlos. I appreciate you, man. You're an outstanding gentleman, man. Much respect to you, and I look forward to seeing you doing your thing up there, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. What's that?
Let's make it happen again soon.
Oh, absolutely. And like you said, anything, you know, let me know. I'm sorry that I can't knock on doors. I've been, you know, I have a lot going on, but I can pay someone to do it for me. I'm just kidding. Carlos, thank you so much. Thank you for being a champ. I appreciate you. I know I brought up some things that maybe you like to stay away from, and I want to make that very clear. Carlos had no idea what questions I was going to ask tonight, right? And I want to make that very clear. Carlos had no idea, as none of the candidates have an idea of what I'm going to ask. Everything that I asked tonight was from my own research, which I do before coming on to speak with the candidates. And I just found a lot of interesting information that I wanted to talk about. And I know you like to remain positive. So I just want to let the record show that Carlos is always about being positive. He doesn't get into the nonsense. He's out there for the people. He's going to continue being for the people. I respect it. Carlos, thank you so much, man. I appreciate you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Carlos Burgos, candidate for City Council, District 4. District 4. Early voting is June 12th. Start voting. And make sure you vote for the right candidates. I'm not going to tell you who to vote for. I shouldn't have to. You should already know. I've had him on my show. You've heard him on the Yonkers voice, if you can hear him good enough. So you should know the issues, okay? You should know the issues. You should know what the candidates represent. And the ones that have been in there already, you should know what they're about because you see what they've done or what they didn't do. Ladies and gentlemen, Carlos Burgos. He is the man. Candidate for City Council, District 4. Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on my show. This is Basement Politics with Freddy Vazquez. Have a good night, Carlos, man. Good luck with everything, brother. Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, now I want to announce the winner for the Westchester Mom's Day Spa. I'm gonna announce the one person that was the only one that followed the rules. Congratulations. Graciela, did I say your name right? I'm sorry, but I'm going to reach out to you. Email me at politicwithfred@gmail.com. politicwithfred@gmail.com. Or you can actually message me privately. Give me your contact info, Graciela. I will take care of that. Day spa treatment. She won a day spa treatment on behalf and courtesy of Basement Politics with Freddy Vazquez. So congratulations to you. Please be sure to email me or message me with your contact info so we can reach out and get you all squared away. And I hope you enjoy it. And for the fathers out there, I'm not leaving you guys out. I know it's Father's Day. I'm a dad. Okay. I got a special contest for you guys. June 20th. Make sure you watch Basement Politics with Freddy Vazquez on June 20th. And I'll tell you why. Because the winner of that raffle will get a ride with me a Lamborghini. We'll go from Yonkers to the city and back again. Convertible, top down, Lamborghini Huracan. Come ride with me. So June 20th, dads, make sure you watch. And in the comments section, type dad watching. And toward the end of the show, I will select one lucky dad to come ride with me in a Lamborghini Huracan convertible. Let's do it. So make sure you watch June 20th when I have Mike Cater, City Council President, on with Freddy Vazquez, Basement Politics. Please be sure to tune in Sunday. Yes, that's right. I got 2 shows now on each week because we got a lot of candidates here. Be sure to tune in this Sunday, where I will have Ron Matten with me, Matten, in the basement. Ron is running for City Council President. He's aiming for the top spot. And I actually got to meet Ron a couple days ago at the YCPTA forum that they had there for the City Council presidents. So shout out to Yonkers Council of PTAs. That was a great forum, and they spoke a lot about education. I got to meet Ron. Excellent man. I met his wife also. Great lady. So I look forward to that on Sunday at 8 o'clock. Be back with us, Basement Politics. And this Saturday, I will upload my new podcast, Fred Talk Series, where we will discuss planning board, zoning board, developments, city budgets. I break it all down from the minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in. I am Freddy Vazquez, and I am out of here. I'm exhausted. It's time to go. Thank you, folks. Basement Politics with Freddy Vazquez, Thursdays, Sundays at 8 o'clock. Tune in this Saturday as I upload a new podcast, Fred Talk. Let's discuss the planning board, zoning board, building department. Why can't I get a permit out here, folks? Why can't I get a dang permit? Where's my permit? I'm still waiting.